Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to How to Win at Chess. This is a series where I play against my Twitch subscribers, and I go up the rating ladder, walking you through all the stages of the game as the game is going on. This is episode 29, and in this episode, we are beginning at the lowest elo of around 1200. We will once again be ending at about 2200 rapid. Also, if you watch this video today, and today only, which is March 17th, 2024, it's St. Patrick's Day, and all my courses are 20% off, but that ends today. So if you clicked on this video, you enjoy anything that you see, any of these openings. Again, I don't sponsor these episodes, so they're sponsored by me. If you like my content, you want to take your chess journey to the next level, you can check out some of my courses for free, by the way. But if you like the full version, then you want the full version, you can buy them. Anyway, we're kicking things off with my first opponent, named I Eat Rocks, who is actually not in the... they're not there. They're not online. So that's good. And I will just sit here. And like I said, if the players don't show up, they really run the risk of getting made fun of on the internet. And that's dangerous stuff. Okay, there we go. Okay, actually, I will start with d4. I said 1200, but actually my opponent is closer to 1100, so I will adjust this to 1100. Otherwise that would be false marketing. So I start with d4. Every single series I play 5 games, and so I alternate which colors I play. So for this game, normally I play a London, but let me just show you how to play a Catalan. You can play d4, c4, and then you can play knight f3 and g3. My opponent plays right away c5, striking at my center. This is actually a very confrontational system, and it kind of takes away what I want to do, which is knight f3 and g3. So I'm going to see what my opponent is trying to do. My opponent plays b5. Wow, this is the Benko Gambit. This is a very, very decent opening. And the idea of this opening is to give away this pawn and that pawn and just create a very powerful attack. So I'm going to take one of the pawns. And so white is going to be up a pawn in the end of the Benko Gambit. Black is going to have the queen side open. Now, there is a very sharp, aggressive system against this, and I think it's called the Nescaf Frap attack. And I believe it goes something like knight c3 takes e4. And after b4, knight b5, knight takes is a big mistake. So I'm going to see if my opponent is going to fall for it. The best move is probably to take the gambit, but the Benko Gambit is a very, very dangerous opening. So full credit to my opponent for playing it. And they absolutely deserve to get, everything they want. I'm playing a very tricky line. And the Benko is kind of one of those openings that if you're going to be a very serious d4, c4 player, you do have to know what you're doing against it. You don't see the Benko Gambit a lot at the highest level because I think it's a big risk that black takes. By the way, very good move by my opponent, not actually taking this back and potentially falling into everything that I want to accomplish. I'm going to go e4 because that is generally what you want. Right? You want to put 2 pawns in the center of the board like this. And if my opponent is not careful, I'm going to go e5. So black really should be playing the move d6. And black does, in fact, play the move d6. Now, there are 1.5 million ways to play the Benko Gambit with the white pieces. And I'm trying to find one that's appropriate. I can always say, I think the general rule of thumb is that if you're going to play in a Gambit kind of situation, I almost want to not allow the opponent to have fun. You know what I mean? Like, my pawn's defended, so let me just play natural developing moves. I'm not going to play too aggressively. Sometimes I also say, like, just give the pawn back. Just play b6, let them take. This way they don't open up the rook, but it's sort of a choice, right? It ultimately will come down to what you want to accomplish in the position. So my opponent plays bishop to g7. Now, of course, I can just take on a6, which has been there for a while. You may be wondering why I'm not taking. The opponent is, it kind of wants me to do that to apply pressure to my queen side. I will just take, and now this is called the Benko Gambit fully accepted. I could have taken that on move 5. I could have taken it move 4, technically. This was move 4. Now, playing this, black doesn't actually have to take right away. They do. And now there's also a lot of ways that I can play this. This is definitely not the best way to play this, but I'm just going to take the bishop to show you, I'm giving black everything they want. Like, I'm playing directly into a Benko Gambit. My opponent is probably going to take, and then I'm going to castle, and we're going to see just how good and just how well prepared, my opponent is in this position. And by the way, as I go up the ladder as well, I do just want to point out, I did play a bit slowly last week, and I want to avoid a situation of time trouble again. Now, the thing is, if you get into a Benko Gambit position with white and you don't know what you're doing, it's actually really difficult to figure out the plans, which is, black wants to, like, encroach and do some damage over here. So, I'm gonna play what I think looks like a relatively principled move. I guess I'm trying to think like a 1100, but I also kind of don't want to think like an 1100 necessarily. There's a lot of plans here for black to come down, and one of the reasons I don't really like playing against the Benko is because black gets a lot of counterplay. I don't enjoy letting opponents play into the Benko Gambit. So I'm gonna play a3. I think a3 is a generally flexible move. It kind of stops knight b4. And my opponent could play knight b4 anyway, because I can't capture because of the pin, but then I would just play rook b1. Now black needs to kind of do some stuff over here. Maybe knight d7 to activate the bishop. Maybe the queen is going to come out. It's a pretty big responsibility for an 1100 to be playing down a pawn, but we're going to see how my opponent does. Maybe they have some experience. They do, in fact, play queen a5. And I kind of want to rotate my knight this way and kind of just plop it down. This is a very common idea in the Benko to play knight d2, knight c4. You can also strike in the center. You can play e5, trade, and then put the knight on c4 like that. I don't technically think this is the best move, but I feel like it's a move an 1100 would play. So it's a natural move. You're trying to trade. My opponent actually probably shouldn't capture. I think the best move for black might be something like knight g4, knight d7. Putting pressure on my pawn and kind of making me make the move, which would then open up the bishop. So I will be extremely impressed if black plays knight d7 or knight g4. I might even be too impressed. I might even be like, that might be a little too... I mean, I really do feel like the 1100 move is to take, but we will see what my opponent comes up with. Because keeping the tension, making one of these knight jumps and just saying, well, now I'm making you take me, you're taking on my terms. That's a sophisticated concept. It really is. And then it's going to be up to me to decide what to do. Okay, they do, in fact, play knight to g4, targeting my pawn. Now I have to make a decision. If I play h3, obviously I just lose my pawn. Taking opens up their bishop, but that might be fine. So I am, in fact, going to take. I think e6 was just kind of a silly move. I don't really know what my opponent is thinking about now. Yeah, that is sort of the way to go. Now my knight's hanging. I should probably protect it. But I can also continue with my plan of knight d2 and knight c4. I can just very simply play this move. If I play this move, however, this pawn kind of loses a little bit of protection. But okay, let's play bishop d2. Again, I'm trying to play moves appropriate for the level, and I think there is nothing wrong with this. Also, very important to pay attention to things that are hanging in the position. That knight is hanging. So when this knight moves somewhere, that knight's not going to have any protection. Of course, the knight could just rotate to e5. Like, for the Benko, this is kind of a dream. I really got to tell you, this is this is like a dreamy position for a Benko player. We're just going to see if my opponent is able to carry on from here. I do have various tricks. Sometimes when there's a queen at the end of an opening of a position like this, you sometimes have these little tactical tricks. After pawn takes, the queen is attacked twice. It's going to be attacked by the rook and the pawn. So you always kind of want to look out for these little shots like that you could get. Actually, look what I just calculated. Okay, that's a win for me, I feel like. Getting the queen so far out of the position. Kind of want to play bishop f4 and put some pressure. I also kind of want to just attack the knight, but I do know the knight is going there, so it's not really much progress that I'm making. It's a move I like that doesn't really require much thought. And again, it's a lazy move, but like I just didn't have to think much and I improved my position. You kind of don't want to overcomplicate things. And I think just taking a full file compared to where my rook was is probably a decent move. Now, for black, black can now consider c4 and getting the knight in. Rook b8 is also completely reasonable. Or is it... Wait a minute, I see two loose pieces. Wait a minute. That looks like a fork to me, but there is queen c8. Does my opponent have the board vision to spot queen c8? We're gonna see. All right, the pawn is hanging, by the way, when the rook went to b8, right? Rook b8 did attack the pawn on b2, but now queen c8 does hit both. This might be the moment my opponent thinks they've blundered. They also might just forget about the knight on g4. At 1100, it's possible. It's not, you know, it's not like, but they have been pretty sharp so far. When queen c8 happens, yeah, it's what I thought would happen. I just literally predicted that. That's, yeah, and that's part of this level, is you could play 15 really, really good moves, and all of a sudden you're like, what have I done? You know, they're going to probably take on b2, but that's not enough. Just getting that back is not, and then I have to be a little careful, because when they take on b2, I have to think my knight loses protection, which is bad. Okay, well, that, I mean, I should probably just trade. I probably shouldn't even think twice about it, but I don't have to. But, okay, I mean, if you're going to trade rooks with me, the second that I won a knight, I'm going to trade rooks with you. This now has no defense. The most natural and easy move is rook b1, and then maybe we can just kind of pause there and figure it out. This, for now, seems good. One thing to keep in mind is that if the bishop takes the knight, I can't take with the pawn. So if this bishop was not here, rook b1 would be a bad move. So you can't just think about this, you also have to think about the pin, right? But I am winning. One more thing, small detail, play h3. At some point, just make sure you're never getting back rank mated. It's just good protocol. Now, could I have played rook e1 and probably traded both rooks? Yeah, but sometimes just a quick move like rook b1 in 11 seconds, it's the right thing to, because let the opponent think. Let the opponent think. Chess is also practical. You play with a clock, right? Like, rook b1 is just a practical move here because we don't want to lose anything. We don't want to overcomplicate things right now, okay? So it was a good, you know, it was a good battle, but now I'm up a knight. I'm going to make sure I can't get mated. I'm going to, well, now I probably will trade the rook, because this is the second time the queen retreated, and if I can get the rooks off the board, I'm going to be fine. I'm going to be in great shape. Like, now we just go straight for the endgame, and we don't even think about it. And that knight is now loose, so I've got various ways of attacking it. The queen was kind of the MVP of our position. And you see in this game, my opponent gave away the pawn. They played the Benko, but like 3-4 moves out of the opening, their pieces were sort of spread far apart, and it was a little bit difficult to figure out exactly what to do. By the way, my queen's under attack. I could take the rook, because it's check. I think it's pretty natural here to play something like queen c4, though. Just attacking this. And, you know, f5 is a completely reasonable move. Another small detail, when the pawn moves, you got to start thinking, what got weak? That square. e6 got weak. So right away, I'm thinking, can I plop a knight into the e6 square? Can I maybe play bishop g5? We don't have to trade rooks. You can, right? You can just play rook takes rook. Just get it off the board. Now make sure the queen can't come down. It can't. You could play h4 or, you know, or h3. Me personally, I would just say, you know, just make sure you can't get mated. Just make sure. Just a good rule of thumb. Not necessary at all. Could, you know, we obviously could go for the weaknesses. It's just good practice, especially if you're 1100. Like, it'll save you blunders in the future. You'll, you know, not make any completely ridiculous mistakes. And also, we should keep an advantage on the clock. So we have a 1.5 minute time edge. And the way we win this, we can continue to trade. In a perfect world, we trade the queens. In a perfect world, we trade all the pieces and we just are left with a knight. But we would push this pawn. This is our outside pawn. That is the pawn that our opponent gave to us in the opening. And we try to trade some pieces down. Now, I was saying the Benko for this level is like, it's a good opening in theory, but it is a very difficult opening to handle. And you'll notice, by the way, how calm I'm keeping everything. I'm not touching any of the pieces. I'm just going to push the pawn as far as I can, force my opponent to go play defense, and then I'm going to, you know, my next move might be knight to b5, for example. Just get rid of the knight. Bishop c3, get rid of the bishop, right? Of course, you can play bishop here. Like, you could play a lot of different things here. I can even play b4, by the way. b4 was also very reasonable. trying to, you know, just trade. And the most important thing is that black is spending more time. Now I'm up over 2 minutes, right? So that's the difficult thing about the Benko, is that it's a little bit of a mysterious opening. Okay, let me follow the protocol of trading knights. It's probably not the best move, by the way, because it opened up the bishop. It's probably not the best move, but again, I'm just trying to be practical. And this is a good concept by black, trying to attack me with pawns, but my queen does protect everything. I would not move a pawn like this, just opening up the king, but you'll probably be fine if you do. A queen trade is good. I don't think our opponent will trade. I think they'll probably put the queen in the center. But it could be worth investigating, you know, whether or not they're going to activate the queen. Like, the best move is definitely to avoid and also to continue to cause problems. If they play queen e4, I will be very impressed. And then maybe I can even just go in and eat the pawn. Maybe, right? Again, it's just about making sure you're not gonna suffer here. Like, that's well done. Well done. I like that my queen can come back to protect my king. What I don't like is this stuff. That looks a little bit scary to me. So I will give this check, and I'm going to try to win as many pawns as I can. By the way, we have a little, you know, we could have a little tactic here with bishop takes. That's a nice little tactic. And then you have this fork. Technically, it doesn't quite work because there is queen b1 check. So there's an in-between move that would stop that. Let's see if my opponent sees it. Oh, they didn't. They did not see that. And again, that's part of the game. Queen b1 check, in between move. Unfortunately, now that's a fork. This I can pre-move because there's no way to defend the pawn. And if you're gonna pre-move this game out, you just want to put your queen on a light square because this is on a dark square. So we have a lot of moves. This is discover check, and we will. There is bishop f6. I would now give a check, and you can even sack the queen. You can also just queen, but you can sack the queen, make a queen, and now just make another queen. If they go here, take, just make sure you're not stalemating anybody. Make sure there's always a legal move. Once you get the second queen, it's all checks. I want all checks until mate. So don't play games. Yeah, we're just gonna, I mean, you don't have to, but as long as there are legal moves, that's a check. And now the easiest, by far the easiest, is to cut the king off, make sure it's not stalemate, but I want the queens on alternating ranks, right? So we're gonna make sure the queens are not on the same straightaway. And now now we have an easy ladder, boom. And now you can pre-move. And you pre-move down, and you get the ladder. You gotta get the queens on alternating lines, either horizontal or vertical, and then you kind of slide down, and that's how you win. So that was a good game. I mean, I was surprised to see an 1100 playing the Benko, and then, you know, I thought I played relatively kind of straightforward moves. Knight g4 was a nice concept, and you know, I played like bishop d2, which was a little bit passive. And the thing about this Benko is that it's like 0.3, 0.4 sort of forever. And then the way that black has to create counterplay is like knight c7, rook b8, and you almost never take a step back because, like, look at the advantage. It's 0.3. The second you go back, it's like 0.5, 0.6. I played rook e1, which was sort of an easy move. All of a sudden, it's +1. The only way to defend both knights is to play queen c8. Now I would play bishop f4 attacking. And somehow, black never, I don't know. It like almost feels like it never gets off the ground. And that's one of the dangerous things about this Benko just overall, is that if white sort of controls you and doesn't let you have fun, and obviously, you know, my opponent blundered a knight, which is obviously going to make things more complicated. We traded rooks, and I thought we did a pretty clean job of simplification, but I don't know. I'm not Benko's fine. Obviously, I'm not here just criticizing the opening, but I'm just sort of showing you, like, the way that black should have handled that was stacking the A and the B files, and my opponent, I felt like backed up, and they shouldn't have. They shouldn't have backed up. In the Benko, you almost never back up, and in any gambit, really, you don't back up. Now, I'm gonna do it again. I've got a Scandinavian defense course. It's on Chessly. It's 20% off for only today. And I'm gonna play it, and I'm playing my Scandinavian defense, and you could get a whole free sample. So if you don't want to spend any money, you can still check this out. And you know, the main line is d4 and bishop c4. We'll see what my opponent plays. This is all very standard stuff. Okay, now generally this pawn comes here, but sometimes people play it a little bit differently. Sometimes they play d3 a little bit more. And okay, I have another person playing d3. I haven't played this person before, right? Yeah, we've never played before, but I had a person play this against me quite recently in one of these episodes. And, you know, a lot of people, they do this. And technically, when the pawn is on d4, which is the main way to play the Scandinavian, the move bishop b4 is what I like. It's in my Scandinavian course. Here, I don't like it as much. Okay, bishop e3 is not targeting my queen, so I don't have to get a, you know, I don't have to make a getaway. But I also just think it's like good practice. Just my queen can now escape sort of any time, and there is some pressure on that side of the board. Normally, the bishop is going to e7, but I don't really see a reason not to put it more actively. I mean, generally, the bishop is there, so we will now both castle. I will always play bishop g6, and my opponent played more passively. The more aggressive way to play the Scandi is to put the pawn in the center. But you notice, like, I just have a very good structure. I'm going to finish my development. I'm going to castle, and we're going to play. Another aggressive way to play the Scandinavian is to castle long. But that's very dangerous, because then white can attack you, and you attack white. I'm going to play it the right way, the proper way. I'm just going to castle short. I'm going to show you. It's probably the easiest opening to play in chess, and the most solid, besides maybe the Caro-Kann. But we will now finish our development, and then we will, right... we will kind of consider the next step in the game. When I see a bishop here and I see a pawn here, I'm always thinking to advance with my pawn, try to get that bishop, try to play like knight here, take that bishop when it goes there. I like bringing the queen back and then eyeing that side of the board. I like sneezing. Again, you want to check out Scandi? Right now there's a courses sale. But if you also want to test it out, can take the car for a test drive for free, you're more than welcome to do that. My opponent's trying to go here, but that sort of plays directly into my hands. I haven't finished my development yet. Now I will defend my knight. And speaking of which, bishop f6 is actually not as scary as you would think, because I can slide my king here and go here. And that's actually something you learn as you get stronger at chess. Like, it's a little deceiving sometimes. Oh my goodness. A good move here by white would be knight to e4. Because the move bishop d4 opened up the e file, and now bringing a knight here would be quite strong. A lot of people do play knight h4. They also play this, and the best way that I like to meet this move is actually just to bring the bishop back to g6 and be completely solid. Now my queen sees more of the fifth rank. Very important to understand how your pieces interact when other pieces move, right? So when that bishop moved, the rook opened. When that knight moved, the queen opened. Right? When my bishop moved, my queen opened. I like to do this because when they take, I get a rock-solid formation near my king, and I am not going to lose anytime soon. So, Scandi is, yeah. Very, very solid. Now, of course, we will take HG. These bishops are pretty strong, but they're staring into very, very well-protected pieces. Maybe I will bring my rooks to the center. Maybe I will kick out the bishop with e5. I actually had this in the last How to Win at Chess. If you are a frequent viewer, you will remember. And if you're not, then that's okay. And if you are a frequent viewer, but you don't remember, because chess is hard, in the previous episode, I played e5, but then my opponent's light-scored bishop got very strong. So maybe in this game, what I'll do is I'll not play e5. I'll just bring the queen over. I'll pawn storm, try to trap these pieces over here. And, I mean... I don't have any big advantage, but I have a very easy to play position, and a position that I like quite a lot. I mean, just bring the rooks to the middle now, prepare for the next phase of the game. I said that move was going to be reasonable like a moment ago, and it continues to be reasonable. The immediate threat is the attack on my bishop. Now, my first instinct is to take. I'm going to pause, though. Like, I'm going to say, like, do I have to take, right? My knight is well protected by my knight and my pawn, although maybe I don't want my pawn to move. I don't want my king to be open. So this move comes to mind because I kind of don't want to allow the rook into the game. That seems a little bit silly for me to do. So It's not very often that going back is a great move. I mean, I could go forward. Get a trade, trade off that bishop, which is pretty strong. That, now the more that I look at it, that doesn't look half bad. So I might do it. And the only thing I gotta be a little careful, is that if my queen lands in the middle, a rook is gonna see my queen. So I gotta make sure my queen can always dart out of the way. It could go somewhere where it can be, although the knight can also take. So sometimes when your opponent is pressuring you a lot, you want to make trades, because that way they can't pressure you with pieces. But you'll notice you don't want to just make lazy trades. If you make this trade, another piece reappears. You got rid of a piece, they have a new one that emerged. So by doing this, I will trade, and they don't have an emergence of a new piece. There's no piece. I'm just getting rid of the dark squared bishop. But to be honest with you, both moves were probably fine. B4. Whoa. And so if I take, is the idea rook b1? Is that the idea? Now, I can't protect my pawn, but there is an interesting line there. Take rook b1, and I bring the queen here, defending that pawn if my knight moves. I think that works, but it is a little bit dangerous. It's also a little unrealistic, I feel like, for 1500, so I'm gonna go here. That is definitely not the best move. We will analyze later. I don't think this was correct, but, but we will see. Also, when I come here, I'm creating a battery with my bishop down to that pawn. If any of you were wondering why I didn't take a free bishop, because my queen was hanging. But I think queen b4 was actually fine. I think it was fine. I think maybe, but that was a little bit of a complicated defensive sequence. I was tactically defending my pawn because the bishop was hanging. My opponent would have needed to move the bishop, blah, blah, blah. Also, my Discord just went off, and I apologize for that. That was my Discord. It should be on streamer mode when I am recording. There we go. Now I am on streamer mode. Now we sit and wait for a move. Okay. We should not take with the knight because we lose defense of this. We can take with the pawn, or we can come back and take with the bishop. I'm just going to say, I don't really like the concept of opening space near my king, so I'm going to take with the bishop, but I think they're both fine. And when the bishop takes, I'll take with the knight. And we just have a very solid game. We're completely safe. We have to pay a little bit of attention because you never know when your opponent can sacrifice, but we go. Okay. Now we have an endgame. There's no immediate threat. So probably bringing a rook to the center is correct. We could consider an attack still, but after bishop b3, I mean, I don't really see what we're accomplishing. Knight to d5 is also an interesting move. It puts pressure on the pawn, and it offers up an exchange. Tough to say. Like, I think you don't spend a lot of time here. You just can play like rook d8, for example. The sacrifice doesn't work. So you can't sacrifice here. There's not enough pieces to attack with. What you should be careful about is if the queen goes there and the rook goes behind the queen and then your opponent checkmates you. That would be bad. But accomplishing that is actually not possible. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 moves that would take. And if you can't see that that's coming in 5 moves, I don't really know what to tell you, If your opponent goes here, you can even move the queen in close. And now none of that is going to be happening. But it's a plan, Like if my opponent sees that and goes for it, it's a plan. A plan's a plan. But I'm going to be faster. I'm not going to let that happen, Not to mention, I could play rook e8 and run my king to the center, which ironically could be safe. I can also hide checkmate with my, I can protect checkmate with my knight. A3. The secret to playing with pawns against pawns, because I really do feel like this is a position a lot of people would sort of lose their way in, is improve your position to the max, like double your rooks, centralize your knight potentially and trade and open up. And then at that point, you got to start moving your pawns. Me personally, I would play b5 and a5. That would be my combination of moves, but I would be cognizant of the fact that this pawn gets weak once these pawns go. I would not start with a5, because then the pawn can come forward. Although it's probably all fine. The truth is, it's chess, and it's probably all fine. So for now, let's continue the philosophy of like improving our position and doubling and just getting, active. If we get attacked, which definitely looks quite reasonable, this pawn gets weak, but it's still chess. Like it's not, we haven't earned anything yet. There's nothing impressive just yet about our position. So, and this is why the Scandinavian is not necessarily for everybody. It's a little bit too slow. Like you get these very good positions. You have zero risk of losing quickly, but then you have to play, and not everybody wants to play. But if you're like 1800, 1900, 2100, like these are great openings to have, because the game goes on a while, and that kind of shows like, all right, c3 was maybe a little silly, so we'll come back. We are blocking our queen, which I'm not a huge fan of, but this is life. We're gonna also double up, so we have doubled rooks. Not really clear what the threat is yet, but maybe we will kick out the bishop and instigate. That's the key word about all this. We're instigating. That's what we're trying to do. Like knight d5 now, for example. Knight d5 attacks the rook and the pawn. So actually white has to trade, right? And now it's a fascinating choice. We can take with the pawn or the rook. I wouldn't take with this pawn, because then you don't get any benefit. If we take with this pawn, at least we are opening up some pressure over there. But I gotta tell you, this looks really good. Just doubled rooks. And now maybe we start coming over here. We start trying to get in with the queen, all while paying a little attention to that side of the board. That move threatens the pawn, but that's going to be an easy fix. So now I'm going to strike with a5, and I'm going to try to soften up white's pawn structure and just bulldoze down this line. Another thing at the end of this line is that the rook, well, now the rook is gone, actually. So that's not a bad move, by the way, trying to anticipate the opening of the position. Might have been good for me to play e5 there. That might have been a well-timed move. It still might be a well-timed move, e5. And after a big trade, we get an active queen. We could play b5 now to restrict both of these moves. We could try to play rook f5. A lot of things. So since there's so many complications, what I would say is you have to keep an edge on the clock somehow. Like, you can't just fall asleep and say, oh my God, I'm going to sit and I'm going to think I'm going to solve the game. Let's go e5. Let's try to make something happen. Let's get a trade. Let's get the queen centralized. Okay? How about we do that? We do have to be careful, because if that's a very nice move, by the way, pinning our pawn to our queen. That's a very nice concept. So now our queen needs protection, but this pawn also needs some protection, right? So when I'm looking at this, I'm thinking, all right, maybe I have to play rook e8. That was a very nice concept by the opponent. Now the opponent could play this, right? And they're putting some serious pressure. I was hoping they wouldn't see that, by the way. I saw queen g3, but sometimes I make moves and I'm like, I don't always want to play like a 2400. This move works if I take something, but I don't have to take. I could push. That's why it was better to play rook e1. So I mean, it's a little, but there might be rook e1 anyway, by the way. There might be rook e1 anyway. f4 was an interesting concept. Let's see, will they play rook e1? They didn't. They didn't play rook e1. I can still, maybe now I'll just play f5. Make sure, I can also play rook f5. Tough decision. How about we play, let's play f5. This just looks right. This just looks right. And now we can continue to try to do something over here. How about we rotate, we try to take. Now that we know this is super solid, and we're trying to stay up at least a minute on the clock, let's try to open that side of the board up, right? We're putting pressure. They can't go here because we take. They could try to make a pawn break, but we don't have to take. It's not checkers. I like this. Okay, if we take, they're trying to open, you know, they're trying to get some trades. So maybe just something like queen b6. Just slow, steady. Notice that at this level, a lot of it is like these slow moves. Nobody's doing anything drastic. Nobody's doing anything crazy. Nobody's chopping everything down. Notice how long the pawns have stared at each other. At 1500, that's very, very normal. Now we can take. Now we can take because the queen no longer guards the rook. Continuity. They just went here to protect the rook. We couldn't take because we didn't want them to control the file when they play queen b3. Now we take. That's the difference. Now they're going to lose material. They go here. Oh, that is a very fortunate move for us. c4 attacks the rook. If I move the rook, it's discovered check on our queen. That is crazy. c4 is a great find by my opponent. That is an excellent find. Now the rook, right? If I move the rook, c5 is a discovered attack on my queen. That is nuts. So what I have to find here, and I saw this from a distance. I can't take because of this. What I have to take is this pawn threatening that rook. That's a tough find. And that is the only reason none of this works is because I have this. And I get the rook back, and I'm winning. I'm winning because I'm going to take the pawn, and then we're going to trade a bunch of pieces, and life is going to be good. That is probably the best move, by the way. And so now I have to, I got to protect myself. Like, do I take with the rook here? Probably. That's probably that's probably the best move. That I take with the rook. I'm attacking the queen in this. And I mean, c4 was almost winning. I mean, almost winning. That was an excellent move. And I saw it, but I was going to kind of talk about it in the game review. I can't talk about everything quickly and thoroughly. Do I have anything here? I mean, the easiest by far is to trade the rooks. You don't even think, you just trade the rooks. And you just need to make sure there's no, there's nothing here. So I'm going to trade the rook, and now we just have to not blunder anything. We can just take the pawn. I would give some checks, by the way. I would just give a few checks because you never know what's going to happen. And actually, in this case, we're going to win a pawn with a check. It's always good to win pawns with check. Like, that has to be good. And so now when the king goes to the first rank, again, what I would do here is I would play the simple move. As long as there's no perpetual check, I would just get rid of this pawn. Because now, even if they win this and even if they win this, we're going to hide. We're going to hide. So I would, probably the best move is to protect. I would just take pawns. Like, that's the easiest. But now our king is safe. As long as you avoid more checks, and now we're winning. The easiest way to win is to probably just push the pawn. Like this. Oh my goodness, I don't know why I'm sneezing so much. So, now a lot of things win. Taking the pawn wins. Even trading the queens wins. We have a check. That's probably the most instructive. We can play check, force the king up, and then force a queen trade. And then the pawn promotes. But there was a lot of ways to win. Could have also. Now this is winning. And make sure no stalemate. I think my opponent's going to go here. Okay. Cut the king off. Give a check. Win the pawn. And now the easiest thing, just like last game. We make a second queen. Every move is a check. Check. Boom, 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 boom. Same exact technique. Wins you every game. That was a great game by my opponent. My opponent played super well that game. And they fought very, very well. And you'll notice that at the 1500 level, a lot of people sort of play this kind of solid system. And in the game, I tried to play relatively solidly and straightforward. Bishop g6 is not the best move. It was better for me to play bishop g4 and be a little bit more aggressive, try to create this weakness for my opponent. But I went here and I thought I played fine. This was all normal. And yes, indeed, the best move was this, because after rook b1, I can play, for example, queen e7 and defend this pawn because of this trick. And now that's a little tough to spot, I think, even at 1500. So I went here. We were kind of, slightly better maybe here. The computer, by the way, does want me to take with the pawn. and go up and use my... And that is instructive that my king is actually safe. I may or may not have known that, but again, I'm trying to put you through the, you know, the brain of a person playing. And my opponent did a very decent job. I mean, this was, you know, I thought I kind of demonstrated the right way to put pressure in this type of position. I had a beautiful tactic here, by the way, which is c5 and sacrificing my queen. Yeah, that's really, really nice. That, you know, if pawn takes, I had this, and that's kind of brutal, right? Now, in this position, queen takes, yeah, that's sort of the end. Once we start breaking in, it's bad news. We get in, and I think it was just basically totally winning. Yeah. And now, yeah, this is unfortunately the end of the game. Now, there is one tricky thing here, by the way. If my opponent went here, this move is a draw. Because it's a stalemate and white can sack the queen. Oh, that's so brutal. Oh my goodness, I just saw that in the Stockfish lines. Oh my gosh, queen g6. Oh, that's a draw. That is why you never resign. But I thought I did a nice job, and you know, luckily I avoided that. If I blundered that, that would have been crazy. My next opponent is not online. I need to tell them to get online. Please go to play online, refresh. Sometimes it happens, you're sort of logged out. But yeah, this was really creative by my opponent, c4, and this is the only winning move. And just so you understand, like, if the position was, let's say, even this is losing. Because I can't attack the rook. I can't attack the rook, which is kind of nuts. Yeah, so that was very nice. That was very nice. All right. My next opponent seemingly cannot figure out how to get a game going. I don't know what's happening. I'm going to try to start the game again. Let's see what happens. Says they're not online. Okay, if it says they're not online, then I'm going to try to challenge them to a game instead of starting the game by myself. So stay tuned. Maybe we'll put a commercial break. Maybe the commercial will be just, you know, get a course from me. How about that? All right, I'm going to just send them a challenge. There we go. Formal fallacy. Okay. First game I played d4. I've been playing a few Englishes. Let's play e4 this game. Maybe I'll go back to d4 for the next one. Okay, Sicilian. There's a lot of lines against the Sicilian defense. One of my favorites is a3. Let's see what my opponent does. This is in my e4 course. So if this game goes well, you got to check out the e4 course. Get it 20% off. This is the most common response by black. All Sicilian players play all these different Sicilians, but the second you play a3, suddenly they all play knight c6. Now, this is playing directly into the gambit. So if you don't take, of course I'm going to go b5, and that feels unpleasant. As a person playing the Sicilian with black, you kind of don't want to take this pawn. You kind of don't want to. So some people will strike in this, you know, they'll try to do something else. But if you don't take, I'm going to play b5. And, you know, what's funny is that a6 stops b5, but it doesn't, because I can still play b5. And now this is a bit psychologically rattling for some people. Taking the pawn is not bad for black, but it's understandably dangerous. And now suddenly we are completely throwing a Sicilian defense player out of their comfort zone. Because do they go home? Do they go to e5? Like, what do they... If they play knight d4, we will boot them around the center a little bit more. So already in 5 moves, we have a 1700 completely you know, like running around, right? In fact, I think we can win the knight. We can just chase the knight down. D4 here, but what about F4? Knight G6, can I just play F5? Maybe not. There's a nice move there that might save my opponent. I would be very curious to see if my opponent found this move. If I play F5, there is a ridiculous defense. If the knight just runs around, I'm just going to trap it. But F5, there might be E6. Creating a threat of this check, which is crazy. I mean, if that works, that is really, really wild. We got to analyze that. I don't want to risk it because I don't want to get into a bad position, but that is really instructive. F5, E6. I mean, I kind of want to play into it just to see if my opponent would spot it, but I also don't want to get myself into a bad position. What do we do? I'm so conflicted. Let's go for it. It's not the best move because of this completely, and then like I have to make sure I'm not like losing there. E6 would be wild if they I mean, I don't know, you know. I don't know. Is that a 1700 level move? Maybe if I played F5 very quickly, my opponent would have like not suspected anything is up. But no, E6 is one of those moves that you kind of come up with out of desperation. And they can't hear me, just so, like my opponent's not in my walls, I would hope. So yeah, they didn't find it. They didn't find it. And now the knight is trapped. Although I think they're trying to... they're doing it this way. They're doing it this way. That is very interesting. I don't think it works, but it is a very interesting idea. Because I can just walk up to the... You know, if I take, the queen is very, very powerful. But what if I just protect my... Like, what if... Is there anything wrong with queen g4? I'm trying to figure this out. Anything wrong with queen g4? I don't see anything wrong with queen g4. And you don't have to take, just so it's not checkers. So I think I'm just going to go queen g4. And I think I'm just going to win this knight. And that might be already the end of the game. If pawn takes, by the way, if pawn takes, I can just take the knight. I don't have to take the pawn back. Yeah, but now I'm going to take, and the difference is that this is only a check with a bishop. So I can hide my king, and as long as I don't lose anything or do anything really dumb, it's a very big advantage. It's a very big advantage. Now, bishop f6 protects this, and... Ooh, that is very creative. If I take, I get forked. Very tricky. At 1700, they set traps. And this is very, very instructive. Do I go back to the third rank, or do I go here? I kind of want my knight there, but I also like my queen there, so I'm not sure. Yeah, I'm not sure. I don't know. It all looks kind of okay. I think I should be a little more active with my queen. I expect bishop f6. Although knight f6 is probably also fine. And I'm up a knight. Like, our a3 Sicilian got us a winning position in less than 10 moves against, obviously, a very good player. So we still don't have to take here. We can play bishop b2. We can finish our development here. I mean, it looks really appetizing to put the bishop out. It just feels good to have more pieces in the game, because right now I don't have a lot at all. And also I have a very weird position with this king, and it's a little bit dangerous. Plus, now this bishop kind of lost contact. But I do have to be careful. I mean, you know, there are still plenty of ways to potentially lose. So I should be sure to be defensive. Some of you, by the way, like I always talk about simplifying when you're winning. A bishop f6 is probably fine, but I would not be so hasty to give away such a bishop. I mean, it's a very nice looking bishop, and I really don't want to trade it off, you know? So, queen b6. Okay, is there a threat? No. Is there a threat? Actually, no, because I'm defended. So, I mean, I can just develop. I wouldn't develop this way because then I'm blocked. Could maybe get my knight out. I could offer a queen trade. Right, could do a handful of things here. I think but probably the easiest move, and the move I have to think about the least, is knight to h3. It's not really where I want my knight, but it's just getting a piece out. It's protecting f2 from this idea. I could have moved my bishop there or there probably as well. At some point, black will move the rook, and this will become a reality. I cannot take because of this. And when you are up a piece, you don't... Not all pawns are the same. You don't really care about you don't need to preserve every single pawn. So the pawns kind of change value as the game is going on a little bit, you know? So I would not be that concerned. If I get another e4 in the next game, I'll probably play a Caro Kann, or I'll play a modern. I kind of feel like playing something on the 6th rank. So this is a very weird position. This is like, you know, the opening went well, and we obviously, you know, we got an advantage, and, you know, they tried to play very creatively and defensively, but d5 is a very interesting move, just trying to get aggressive. So if I take, they're going to take with the pawn or the knight. If I don't take, they're going to take me. So as long as you're not creating massive problems for yourself, trading is probably in general going to be fine. Like, we take a quick moment to glance. Okay, the knight is coming here, you know. I am being messaged by my wife, I think. Yes, she is traveling home on the train. My opponent took. I promise I'm not getting assistance. Okay. This looks like a good move to me. The bishop is targeting the pawn. Yeah, I mean, rook here looks pretty reasonable. I also like knight c3 just attacking this pawn. That seems pretty straightforward, right? We're just threatening the pawn. And also, my opponent's king is still in the center. So there might be moments for me to attack. If black castles, they walk directly into this rook and directly into that bishop, and I do like that very much. This bishop has sort of lost its power. It's really not doing a whole lot anymore. It also kind of looks trappable. Like, queen f4 does look very, you know, they will block. The reason I'm not playing this is I'm already seeing that the knight can get in the way. But can't I just trade? Isn't the trade good for me? I guess they're trying to... I mean, I don't see a punishment for this move. So I'm going to take... And just to slow you down here, there's a very interesting move I could play, which is queen e4. Of course, I'm going to take. But queen e4 check attacks the knight and the bishop and the king. So, you know, the bishop might have to come back. But, you know, for simplicity, we're going to go here. There's a cool move here, which is bishop c6. I can take, but then I lose this. That looks dangerous. It's not that dangerous because I can save my rook by playing rook c1. I can also just... with the pawn on that square, suddenly the king becomes very weak for black. Okay, but now I'm getting... Also, isn't this a free bishop? Rook g1 also looks like it's very... Also, queen d4 is a queen trade guaranteed. Because I'm threatening the queen and mate. If I go here, what is my move if black plays rook d8? There is no move. Technically, there's like one small move, but that is more than enough to get me to say, yeah, I'm good. I'm fine. I don't want to get wrapped up in any of that. Queen d4, though, is a guaranteed queen trade. And then after takes, we're winning. They're probably going to get a pawn. But we do have a winning advantage. Rook g1, they're going to come back and play defense with the bishop. Me personally, I mean, I think the best move in the position is maybe to take the bishop, but queen d4 just strikes me as like the you can't lose move. There's also absurd moves like rook a4 attacking the bishop. I should speed up though. You'll notice I don't have a lot of time. What about bishop d4, by the way? This is just something that dawned on me. Then maybe queen h6. It's all weird. It's all really weird. I'm going to play simple chess. I'm going to trade queens. And then we're winning, but they're going to have a little bit, they're going to have something to say about it. It's not as easy as we would like. But being up a knight is better than not being up a knight. We spent way too much time on that move, 1.5 minutes. Obviously, too much time. We want to play it a little bit faster, but it is what it is. Now, if they take, the rooks are staring at each other. Yes, of course, I anticipated this move. This is under attack now, but we don't have to defend against that yet. Instead, I can play rook g1, and I can just... I'm going for my own stuff as well. g6 is possible. Bishop g6 getting in the way is possible. f6 is possible as well, blocking the bishop. Bishop g4 is a check. If they do that, I think I'm going to play bishop e2. I think I'm going to trade and still continue to go for that. And low-key, super low-key, that pawn is now actually hanging. So, pawn has not been under attack for about 10 moves. But now it is. So, yeah. g6 indeed. I can take the pawn. I mean, the pawn is free. It's not free because the bishop is targeting my knight. So the thing about these How to Win at Chess episodes is like sometimes my brain just stops working halfway through. It's like too much chess. Well, if it's not free, then I'm going to have to start, bringing some more pieces into the game. I'm going to have to play knight f4. So, crazy game. I mean, definitely a game where black is creating a lot of counterplay. Even though I'm up a piece, it's not proving to be easy whatsoever. This is attacking this. Listen, I think that by far the easiest thing to do here is just to play bishop d3. Like, let's just trade some pieces. If bishop takes, I'm going to take with the knight. And then the less pieces black has, and I don't want to double my pawn, so I think I'm going to play this. And yeah, now I'm winning. This is under attack. Again, I could, probably dance out of the way, but let's just create a bulletproof central structure that our opponent can't get past. And now let's go convert and win the game. So I'm going to play rook b1. I'm going to play rook d5 probably, right? Then I might play knight f4. Then rook f5. Okay, so maybe I'm going to try to get a rook trade. Maybe I'm going to play... That's the best move, and I can't play rook e1. Tough. It's proving to be very, very, very annoying. Very difficult position. But again, we have 2 minutes. We can't, we can't overthink. So let's play rook f1. Let's just kind of play quickly. Let's see. We have a knight for 2 pawns, and the 2 pawns are not particularly good pawns. So the more trades we can get, the faster we can get those trades, the better. We're going to try to cause problems with the knight. Now we're both in the 2-minute mark. Last time I got really low on time. I'm trying to be instructive, but then I get 2 minutes and then it's pandemonium. So I'm trying to be instructive, but I got to win the games. I got to win the games. And 1700 is not easy. If I just try to sit down and win the game, as fast as possible, it will be easier, but let's go knight b4. We're targeting the knight. No, we're not targeting the knight. That is not a knight. We're targeting the rook. If this, maybe I have some X-ray stuff. Skewer. Get a trade. Make my life easier. Been talking about it. More trades we can get, the better. Less pieces black has, less headache for me. Yeah, I'm looking at bishop f6. I don't see anything wrong with bishop f6, so I'm going to play it. Anywhere the rook moves, I'm going to take the bishop. Right, now here I could maybe throw in h3, by the way, but I don't think it does anything. So let's trade. This is under attack now. Let's protect it. So now they don't have a bishop. So now we have to get the rook into the game. We have to get the knight into the game. And in the interest of time, we should take as much stuff as we can while protecting all of our pieces. Easier said than done. Another way to play this position is to just go for a checkmate. Like, just go and try to get a mate. I'm gonna go rook a7, trying to get this pawn. I feel like black will probably play rook c7. Just to show you, like, it's not easy to win this position. That's a big mistake, because now I get over there. And now we're gonna start cleaning up. Now we see the advantage of having the extra piece, because this piece is gonna come back in different paths, and it's gonna cause problems. We can take on b6. Nothing is hanging. Boom. Now we're just up a knight. No questions asked. Now we're gonna be up a knight and a pawn. And very quickly, black's position will disintegrate. Now I have a feeling black might try to trade with us. Okay, now we are up a knight and a pawn. King is always safe. Like, now it's just a cleanup process. Now we're gonna get the knight to the middle and start pushing. I wouldn't mess around here. If we have an option to trade a rook, we trade the rook, but if not, just go. Do we have an option to trade a rook? We can't push this, we also can't push that. It's kind of annoying. All right, let's bring the knight to the middle then. Bring the knight to the middle. Somehow. Are they going here? They might. It's a good idea, maybe. Not a bad move. It is definitely there. Yeah. I'm going to play knight f4. Probably have something maybe slightly more accurate, but knight f4. They're going to take. Good counterplay. Now, in the interest of simplifying, this is probably best. And now we go for this pawn. So now we're going to try to win both of these pawns. And now, by far, the easiest way to play this position is to Oh, that is a great... I should have brought my king closer that way. That was silly. I'm making this a little bit more complicated for myself now. Let's go c4. We're in a pawn race. h4. This is protected. But it's getting a little too It's getting a little too close for comfort for me. Now this is the best move. Now, I think I can sacrifice and probably win. Take, rook takes, take, c6, h3, 7. We're queening at the same time. Crazy. So maybe... Oh, man. This is nuts. I made this way more complicated than I had to. Funny. All right. Oh. Let's keep our knight. Let's keep our knight. Again, I'm making this way more dramatic. I don't know what I don't know why I'm doing all of this. That's checkmate. That is a checkmate threat. King h7 is that unfortunately loses the pawn. So it's not mate, but it's a great game by my opponent. I just want to give the props where they're due. Now, the easiest way, of course, we're just gonna push. So we're gonna protect everything. We're gonna push. This is a great game by black though. And sometimes it's hard for me because like I gotta win, but I'm also trying to give let's give a check, just make sure we're back here, and we're just this move blunders a fork. That we don't have to take, but taking was probably best, by the way. Now we are winning. That's a nice move too, because the queen can promote. But I do have a backwards check. There was multiple ways to win. No stalemate, because the king can actually go back to g5. Give some checks. Every move should be check. And we will check all the way down until mate. That was a great game. I mean, what can I say? Like, that was really well done. That was really well done. And our opponent really played fantastic. Now, in the opening, the a3 Sicilian got us a major advantage. So we were winning, and here, yeah, e6 is the best move. That is the only move that doesn't get black into a losing position. This does get black into a losing position. It still was not over. And probably, here I could have been a little bit more precise, but we had a major advantage here. And what we should have done, instead of playing knight c3, which was probably fine, we should have went for the bishop, allowed this, but then disallowed black from castling. That's what we should have done. The way it happened in the game is actually black's game got prolonged quite a lot, and we got ourselves into an endgame where, we were better and, convincingly better, but we still had to work really hard. And I thought I was pretty instructive with how I did this, but I allowed a little bit too much. Like, everything I allowed here was a bit much. And it was a bit instructive the way my opponent stacked the rooks and won this pawn. I thought that was very clever the way they did it. I did not have to allow it to that extent. I don't know. I sort of was letting the game go and seeing what happened. But next game, I got to shut down the counterplay faster. I want to win the next game a little bit faster because that game was definitely losable. It was definitely losable. Okay, my fourth and fifth opponent might need to switch. I'm going to say... All right, we are switching opponents because one of my opponents is going to is in the airport and is actually wants to get on a plane. So a lot of stuff, a lot of moving parts in this episode. And now that person isn't online. There we go. Okay, I'm going to play d4, and I think, you know, against the 2200, I got to focus and I got to play fast this game. This is the strongest opponent of the day. Probably a young player as well. Last week, I lost to like a 13-year-old 2250 rated player. Okay, the game aborted. Let's play d4. A lot of drama in this episode. A lot. Okay, the game aborted again. This is actually getting frustrating now. Okay. Oh my goodness. This is crazy stuff. There we go. All right, tremendous. d4, d5. There's a lot of things we could play. Let's play a Jobava London. Well, c5 is a pretty aggressive move. I will play knight c3 anyway. Knight c3. If takes, I will take with the queen, of course. Takes, queen takes, then we play aggressively with e4, get the bishop out as well. That's a move. I think e3 is completely reasonable here. Might be some e4 stuff as well. I can't play knight b5 right away, if anybody's wondering. Queen a5 check. I need to play this first. And cd4 is a completely reasonable line. And now this knight c3, bishop f4 London is putting a little pressure with moves like knight b5, but we'll also play knight f3, bishop d3. We'll play these kind of... Yeah, a6 is completely standard. I might be able to take on c5 now, and against e5, this pawn is still hanging. So I might have this e5 bishop here. But I would avoid positions where you're giving up such a big center to the opponent. So instead, I'm just going to play knight f3. I think this is completely normal. I'm going to play knight f3. But now, dc5 is starting... I don't know. I mean, opponent's just letting me do it, which makes me think it's, you know, maybe okay to play like that. Like dc, e6, and knight a4, for example. Knight e4 to try to win the pawn back. I might have something there, but I don't know. And since I don't know, I'm a little bit scared to do it, and I don't want to do it. So I'm going to play a3, which actually sets up this move, because the next move I will play b4. It's a pretty solid position. Again, I'm playing in a... I'm obviously playing a very, very strong player. So I don't want to fall behind on time. We are going to be learning ourselves. The same way I'm teaching you, I'm also going to be, you know, I'm going to be teaching myself. Last time I got into a very, very bad position against my opponent, and I spent way too much time. So this time we're going to try to play... Yeah, bishop g4 is a normal move. I wonder if I can take on c5. Like, every move I'm thinking about taking on c5. But let's just play bishop e2. After takes, we'll just castle. I can also just castle now. I can also play knight e5, which could be an interesting transformation of the position. But let's just castle. I think my opponent will play bishop d6. And now, again, I'm looking at knight e5 as a possibility. Puts a little bit of pressure on the black position, but nothing, nothing crazy. Taking sometimes is an option as well. Going back to g3, I think, though, is like by far the easiest. You generally don't want to take unless there's some very clear payoff. So take, I'm going to be fine. I do have to be a little bit worried about sometimes there is some queen b6 stuff, but it's nothing too dangerous. For example, takes, take, and then my opponent goes for some sort of queen b6. But that shouldn't work. Okay, that's interesting. Now I am considering knight takes instead of pawn takes. Like normally you take with a pawn, but you know, maybe we will get an interesting imbalanced game if I take with a knight. Now the bishops see each other, right? Okay, they take like this. So taking with the queen, the knight, or this knight is possible. They all are possible. If I take with the queen, I end up with a pawn in the center of the board. If I take with the c knight, I don't know. I can also take with the d knight. Queen take strikes me as the most normal, but then I have to transform my, my pawns. I'm not a huge fan of that. So how about I take with my c knight? Position's equal. We're gonna try to figure out something over here. To me, queen d3 looks pretty natural. Advancing with c4, trying to play like rook c1 and c4 looks quite nice as well. I am a little concerned if my opponent like takes and puts a queen on b6. I've been talking about queen b6 like basically the entire game. So let's play queen d3. It's very tough to switch gears from 1300, 1500, 1700 to opponent that can beat me if I'm not careful and if I play a bad game. Okay, knight e4, yes, I was expecting this move. Especially as a result of no longer having the sufficient coverage of that square. But I do think after c4, knight e4, I can play c4. Which I do like. And so now the pawn can't take. And I'm getting a bit more space. I think this is a good response to this move. To this move, rather. I'm already malfunctioning mentally. I can take with the knight. I mean, I think taking with the h-pawn is completely natural. Oh, did I blunder a fork? Oh my goodness, I blundered knight e5. Oh, these 2200s are too much. Oh my goodness. Second time, really? Yeah, wow. So c4 was a mistake because after knight takes g3, there is knight e5 with a fork. Oh, that's brutal. Okay, so queen b3 probably I have to play, right? So queen b3. I attack the pawn on b7 while my pawn is hanging here. It's getting tactical. It's going to take with a knight. Can I take on b7 or am I going to get my queen trapped? I mean, at this point, I'm skeptical of everything, right? So we're both trading. Rook b8, I have this. I'm very worried I'm going to get my queen trapped, but I don't really see what else I can do. Queen a5, I can play b4. Queen a4, I can play knight c3. Again, rook b8, I take. And then, I mean, I don't think my queen is getting trapped. Okay, it's just turning into a tactical game now. So this is protected. I can probably get a rook trade. If I get a rook trade, I might lose the pawn on a3 from the knight, which I don't like. I'm not sure I like anything in this position because this is also a threat, which would remove the defense. Okay. And I'm down 2 minutes. I'm kidding. I don't know if I'm playing poorly or I mean, I don't know. Like maybe it's just tough to go up the level every single episode. Seriously, like I'm playing completely poorly. Okay, let's go knight c3 to avoid any of those tactics. Okay. I think I gotta trade the queens. Now we have an endgame, right? Think I gotta advance. I don't see anything better. I'm definitely not, you know, doing great here. Definitely not doing great. But we'll try our best. Bishop b4. Don't know. Might need to plot my knight on b5. Might need to plot my knight on e2. I just hope this series doesn't turn into how to win at chess except against 2200 rated players who are in their teens. That would be very sad. I think a rook trade is good. I like my outside pass pawn, and in the endgame, it feels like in the endgame, the outside pass pawn is more of an asset than it is a liability. So I think I'm going to offer a rook trade. Probably my opponent should go here. I mean, I'm really not sure though if that's the best way to play. I'm saying probably because it is pretty complicated. I think a rook trade is not good for black. I think black needs the rooks to pressure the pawn. But I am completely not positive about that hypothesis. If rook here, I might just go all the way to the 7th rank. Rooks on the 7th rank are very good in the endgame, although I don't actually know what I am doing there. But hopefully something. Okay, I like that 37 seconds have gone off black's clock, and I also like the fact that a lot of time is being spent now. Okay. I don't think the rook trade benefits black. However, we will see. Okay, rook on the 7th. Yeah, this is how we're going to start playing this endgame now. Rook on the 7th rank. Always monitoring when I can advance. Maybe putting a knight on b5. Maybe putting my king in the center. I definitely don't have any edge whatsoever. And I got to start thinking of like even what I want to trade. I mean, maybe I can put a knight on b5 and play for e4, trade this off. Okay. This looks smart. This configuration looks very smart. Everything protects everything. If my opponent goes for a trade, I will defend. You know, I will take and I will defend myself. So that looks pretty reasonable to me. More than anything else, I have to catch up on the clock as well. I want to play king f1. I don't see if I'm blundering anything. Famous last words, by the way. I might not see it. Doesn't mean it's not happening. So... okay, we both have four minutes. I am catching up on the clock. I'm going to have to be very careful walking my king here, because if I go to d3, there is a fork, which would be really tragic after all that hard work. Maybe the rook isn't better there. It's better on like d7, but then there's also another fork. So yeah, I am not sure. I am not sure how we are going to make progress. e4, there is d4. So knight to b2. Yes. Now I do have knight c7. No, I don't. I do not have knight c7. Okay. I don't have anything. I don't have anything, actually. Okay, so I'm going to go for f4. Oh, that was really stupid because he can just take. What am I doing? What, I mean, that was a crazy move, knight b2. Didn't see that at all, but I feel like that's pretty standard at this point. So now I can probably trade. Trading is, I mean, I would think trading is the right decision here to just try to hold this endgame somehow. But let's try to create active counterplay, and let's try to let's try to have a little bit of fun. Oh, that was just unbelievably stupid as well, because now my opponent's going to play knight e4, and I'm probably just lost. Oh, this is so frustrating. What am I doing? Yeah, I mean, I'm playing really badly. Like, it's actually... Oh, it's instructive, but it's so frustrating to lose like this. I mean, I'm just gonna be 2 pawns down. Like, I'm trying to, like, make a good example at least, and this is terrible chess. It's very frustrating to play chess like this. I mean, I'm missing everything. All right. I'm active. At least I have that going for me. But, I mean, my opponent's just gonna go here and here. Like, I don't... There's no point being active if you're gonna get checkmated. I need some breathing room for my king, probably. So this is what I'm going for. Just down 2 pawns. Just down 2 pawns. Though. Yeah, and so now, I mean, I can go here and try to create some counterplay against the king. As long as I don't get checkmated. As long as I don't get checkmated. We're still fighting. We're still fighting. Rook b2, rook here, rook, you know. Rook here looks bad. Looks like I'm gonna lose this pawn. I might have like knight d8. I mean, knight e5 is probably the move you should play. But it all looks horrible. Like, I think this is probably best. I don't know. But this is awful. Awful chess by me. So bad. And great chess by my opponent. I think this 24-42 is probably pretty deceiving. That is definitely not my ability in rapid chess. Okay. I have some activity. That's what I'm going for. That's all I have. All I have going for me right now is the fact that I have a little bit of active pieces. And I need to make sure my king doesn't get checked, so I can't, like, blunder a fork. Maybe I need to hang out on h4. I have to hang out somewhere that I'm not going to, you know, catastrophically lose the game in one move. Okay, knight d6. Yeah, so I guess my opponent is repositioning to f5. Maybe I play king here? Or is that, like... I mean, it would be fitting if I lost this way. Like, trying to reposition myself. This is not a fork. Yeah, I can take this pawn. But it might all be losing. I mean, it really might all be losing. Because of this pin. The rook is also under attack. I think I'm blundering something. Like rook g8, knight e5. Oh, they blundered the rook. I'm not even sure it's that good. I'm not even sure it's that good. This is the crazy part. Okay, king f6 is probably draw-ish. Check, we repeat? I don't know. Yeah, I mean, we might repeat moves. And then I mean, playing this endgame for a win is very, very silly. I don't think I can win this endgame. King is just gonna come around. Here. I mean... I think I should take the draw. And I think my opponent's going to take the draw too. Yeah. Yeah, there's nothing better here. Maybe I can play rook c3 but the thing is black can also always create this type of blockade. And yeah. So that was yeah, I mean, my opponent just, I mean, what can I say? They played very, very well. This was all quite good. This trade was good. Knight e4 was smart. I mean, there was a lot of ways that, and then, yeah, this is crazy. Not seeing that is really indicative of the fact that, I mean, this is just a bit too long of an episode. Like, my brain just gets fried after staring at the screen for 90 minutes. Because of course c4, I am looking at knight e5 and I'm like, oh, it just doesn't work. And then, you know, they find that. c4 was not good. I should have probably taken the bishop first and then probably tried to do something else. We got into a big tactical game. Oh my God, knight a5 was just winning. No, but this is awful. I mean, this is completely horrendous. Like, this series is for me also, I have to learn how to, like, mentally switch from playing an opponent who's 1400 to 2200, because I'm really struggling. Like, I'm the last two episodes, I am not playing that level. I'm not seeing any. Knight a5 just traps my queen, and then I would have had to play on down a piece. But I was just worse, like, the whole game. I mean, this was crazy. Like, this was terrible. I mean, I missed knight b2. I didn't even see knight b2. And this is a completely winning endgame for sure. Where my opponent went wrong was, first of all, I don't think that they should trade, actually. I think that they should create an outside pass pawn. This is instructive. And then they should just try to go for my king with the outside pass pawn. And I can't do much here. I was ready to resign if h4 happened. I would have had to, I don't even know. I would have done some completely ridiculous thing. Who knows what I would have done. But yeah, I mean, atrocious. Atrocious by me. Very, very bad for a second week in a row. Once my opponent gave me this and I had a little bit of activity, actually, you'll notice it's minus 1.4. So here it's like minus 3, and then here it's minus 1.4, and now it's minus 0.6. So it's instructive that even though you are 2 pawns down in an endgame, if you get sufficient activity like I have, and my opponent is very passive, you're actually not losing completely. So, yeah. And, but I want to get this game off the screen as fast as possible. I want to play a Norwegian. Pepega. Maybe this is Magnus. Maybe I'm ending the episode by playing against Magnus. Okay, d4. I'm going to play a modern. Okay, my opponent switches it back to e4. Right? I can play d6 and a6, and then we will see what happens. We're gonna see is my opponent gonna play aggressive, or are they gonna? They do play aggressive. Okay. Are they gonna play like mega super aggressive, or are they gonna play like not mega super aggressive? It's a long episode. Oh my goodness, I am tired. You know what I should do? I should start with the best players. I would be more fresh. This is all very standard. This is called the 3 pawns attack, or the Austrian attack. And then white likes to go for this e5 advance. What black likes to do is create counterplay with these pawns, create counterplay like this. And the main line here goes something like bishop here, e5, bishop e4. But there's a lot of ways to play this. a3 is generally not a good move because b4 was not such a massive threat. But okay, a3 is very reasonable. And the way that black tries to attack white now is with the c pawn. Knight d7 and c5. Some people like to play, instead of knight d7, they like to play e6. Just preventing white from advancing and then playing like knight f6. That does not look like the way you're supposed to play this position. Let's play knight f6. e5 we have knight e5 we have knight g4, and also e5 we have knight d5. So we can just trade. And this is, yeah, the modern defense is very fun. It's a little bit exotic, a little bit weird. You get some very interesting dynamic positions, and this game I'm also just trying to play a little fast because my brain is completely fried. So there's also that. I'm going to go knight here, and I'm going to try to play for c5. If my opponent plays e5, I have 2 possible moves, which are put the knight there, attacking the bishop, and also a little bit more calm, putting the knight there, getting a trade with the bishop. And I don't know which one is better. Knight g4, the bishop is under attack. Move. Honestly, I've had a long day. I'm just going to try to trade the knights. So let's try to trade like this. My bishop will stand in the center of the board, and the bishop will be good. There we go. I like the minute advantage that we have in the opening. I'm very frustrated with how I played that last game, though. Very, very bad. Queen e2. c5, castling is probably fine. There's no immediate threat to our position. c5 If they take c4, might just win a bishop, by the way. By the way. It might just straight up win a bishop, but of course they don't have to do that. They could like take, for example. I don't know which way they're gonna castle too, so I don't know where I should start an attack, which is sort of annoying. So we could just play something like e6 and wait. e6 prevents e6, and now white will tell us probably right now where they're going to castle. They might not. They might play a4, which would be super annoying, but that's life. If a4, I think I'm going to castle, because I think if this position opens up, okay, that at least tells me they're going to castle short, which means I can probably also castle short. Because if I'm castling short and they're castling short, then at least I won't get checkmated, which should be nice. I like the concept of knight b6 and then knight c4. c5 they can now take, but c5 takes, I am still trapping this bishop, so maybe c5 takes, and then we just take. c5 take, we can also take that way. I'm going to try to keep the position as simple as possible because I don't really have the mental capacity at the moment to calculate all of this stuff. I really don't. Like, I'm actually just very tired. So how about we go to this diagonal? I'm going to go queen b7 and control the diagonal. That's what we're going to do. I anticipate something like this and some attack by my opponent, but I think by getting the queen, you know, in line with our bishop here, we will have some good chances. It's a very closed position right now, so we both have 8 pawns that are sort of locked up. Okay, my opponent's just trying to checkmate me. That's what it's come to. Let's go here. Gonna get crazy when my opponent plays f5. It's gonna get crazy. Okay, c3. We are about to clash and crazy stuff is gonna happen. Also, because there are so many pawns on dark squares, a bishop trade like this actually isn't that bad. The question is, when do I do it? That is really the question. I can also take here first. I can also play a move like f5. Wild. There are so many possibilities in this position. I mean, f6 also looks very interesting. Just open up that side of the board. I mean, f6 is a crazy move. f6 is crazy. Like, so many things are staring at each other right now. The tension in this position is nuts. Everything can take everything. I can take. Everything can take. My bishop is very strong, though. My light-squared bishop is very powerful, standing in the center. A bunch of pawns from my opponent are on dark squares. So since they have so many pawns on dark squares, this bishop is pretty bad compared to the light-squared bishop, which is why moves like bishop c4, bishop e4, like knight b6, bishop c4 would be great. I would remove that bishop, leaving me with control of the light squares. And, you know, f5 here is an insane move, just sort of completely exploding the position. But I think I have more control. I think the way my opponent's pieces are set up, I have a little bit more control than they do, but very tough to say. So, very tough to say. Yeah, and so my plan was probably to take this with a knight. Although bishop takes to stop knight g5 looks also pretty reasonable. Here, knight g5. I can play h6. I can just kick the knight out. Very funny. If the knight comes here, I can just kick it out. Like, what are you doing there? And I always have, again, not right now, but that's sort of a concept. That's an idea. This is good. Now I can bring my rook to defend this pawn. Yeah, but my opponent might have just kind of like blanked on this move because I also blanked on this move. Or maybe not. They're playing it very quickly. That might have all been part of some sort of elaborate plan. I want to trade the bishops. I still think this is probably a good move. But at this point, my gauge of what's a good move and what's a bad move is extremely bad. I'm having a very difficult time at the moment. But maybe. Fascinating. Bishop e4. Trying to get rid of that bishop. I have talked about it. Now it's time to be about it. Getting rid of that bishop. Put my queen right there. Or knight, actually. Bishop c1. Wow. Okay. I guess the idea is some sort of pawn here. Again, I kind of want to keep it simple. I also kind of want to not keep it simple. So I don't know which part of me is going to actually win out in the end. I mean, g5 does look very annoying. I might just take. If queen here, I'll probably offer a queen trade. Oh, I blundered this. I blundered this. All part of the plan, though. All part of the plan. That was not part of the plan. It definitely wasn't part of the plan. Gotta, like, eat some food before I record these episodes. This is an in-between move check. And after which my opponent can take my bishop. And they're going to be a pawn up. However, I will be able to get my king to the side, kick out their queen, and probably win a pawn back. Kind of fortunate. Kind of fortunate that I, like, have a response that's kind of potent. Yeah, they're going for it, but I'm not sure it's... Now they're going to have to go that way. I'm going to have to get out of my position, and then I'm going to take on g4. So I'm not sure this transformation is actually going to be good for white in the end of it. But it is very scary. Rook e2 is checkmate, by the way. Small detail. Queen b3, rook e2 is a mate threat, which I think I'm going to go for. So that is mate. It also just feels good to activate a rook like that. And then I'm going to take the pawn. Although there is rook g3. Why I didn't take the pawn right away, I don't know. Rook e2 felt like the correct move. Just not worrying about the pawn and just trying to get as much activity as possible as fast as I could. Will it come back to bite? Probably. But maybe not. But maybe. Knight e4. I mean, it's a very complicated position. Knight e4. I can maybe even trade queens, but I don't know why I would trade queens down material. We double. Oh, but terrible decision making. I mean, very bad. So this is probably my worst how to win a chess episode ever in terms of quality of play. I mean, I gotta I gotta eat a snack or something next time because I'm hungry, low blood sugar. My opponents are playing well. I've clearly raised some very good proteges. That's a crazy move. The idea of that move is to checkmate me. But it doesn't work. What? It doesn't work. Because the rook has to play defense. What? The rook has to play defense, right? It's an interesting idea, but what if I play something like queen d5? So the idea is if I move the knight, this is a mate, right? What if I play queen d5? And the idea of queen d5 is that after rook h3, king g8, we're trading queens. Like queen d5, the queen has to move somewhere. I can move my knight anywhere I want, basically. Maybe not anywhere I want, but enough of a place of where I want. I think it works. If I blunder, I blunder. If they find a winning idea, God bless. But this is a very nice concept. Before your knight, which is hanging, has to move, you use it as a defensive anchor to target an enemy piece. The knight can't be taken because if I take the queen, there is no... Like, if the knight was taken with check, I would lose everything. If the knight was taken and then after I take the queen, there would be something, I would lose everything. But the way it stands, I cannot move my knight because my queen is hanging, but I can go king g8, and I think I'm winning. So I think this is an important move, disconnecting the queen from the attack. When the queen retreats, I have now improved the position of my queen and made the position of white's queen worse. And now I think I can just move the knight. Like, I can play like even knight d7, but that seems, I don't really, knight d7 looks dangerous for me. So I think I'm going to go here, move the king here, and I'm just up a knight. Like, I don't see, and my rooks are doubled. Of course, there is, it's never the end of the story, but okay, at least I can, like, can't I trade the queens here? I'm like worried I'm going to blunder basically every move, but looks like I can trade the queens, and okay, with no queens, I won't lose. With no queens, I won't lose. Hopefully, hopefully. Still looks a little unpleasant with all these pieces coming, but that allows rook g4, right? That allows rook g4 at least. Yeah, and they resign. Okay. That was a scary game. I mean, it was a very complicated game. It was equal for most of it. Taking the pawn is bad. A very complex game, very back and forth battle. Taking this is actually a bad move for white because the activity that I get is good. It's good. And rook e2 is fine. Knight takes is fine. Rook e2 is fine. And even this position, despite being one pawn down, I have so much activity. It's very difficult for my opponent to make a move, and they kind of went all in, and sometimes you get called. And there is nothing here. Even, by the way, knight h7 is... Like, you have to have more of an attack than your opponent has defense, and they don't, because I actually have a lot of counterplay there. But that was a super complex game. I mean, I played this modern, and it was, you know, I mean, I thought this position was super tense. It was an equal game, and 1800 level chess is tough, 2200 level chess is tough. I'm glad to have gone 4.5 out of 5 today, but I feel like I got like 2. So I think I held my nerves in this position. I think this was instructive, this move f6, like opening up my knight, opening up my rook, getting those pieces in the game. And I think the quality of pawns that I pushed in front of my king was better than the quality of pawns my opponent pushed, but whew. But yeah, and I think next week I'm going to start with the stronger players. I'm going to make them play me when I'm fresh. And then they're going to have a tough time. That concludes episode 29. Again, if you want to check out any courses, they're 20% off for today. I played the Scandinavian. I played the modern. I don't think I played any with the white pieces, but they're all there. Middle games, masterclass, end games, tactics, whatever you want to improve. Check them out for free. And I will see you next time. Get out of here.